Hello, everyone, and welcome to the San Francisco Independent Short Film Festival. I'm Frankie Stewart of Festival Formula, and today we'll be speaking to some of the filmmakers featured in the single take block. So, guys, I do just have an icebreaker question just to sort of get the ball rolling, and it's nothing to do with your film at the moment. It's literally as simple as, what is your beverage of choice when watching films? So, Nikki, I'll start with you. What takes your fancy?
When the drink I like to drink when I'm watching a film.
Yeah, or at the cinema.
I mean, I'm a beer girl, so I like a
Right.
good pilsner, refreshing, light,
Yeah,
and
I
have
hear
my
that.
wits about me while I watch.
Can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Tim, how about you? Oh, we lost him. Oh, okay, just coming in now. Tim, hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. You've just joined us during the recording, so if I could just ask you to change your name to your name and then your film's name, and then I have a question right off the bat for you, not to put the pressure on.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm just asking an icebreaker question. What is your beverage of choice when watching films?
In the theater, it's usually cherry Coke with to pair with my popcorn. When I'm at home, and it kind of depends on the mood, but usually wine is what I'm drinking with my wife is most common.
Wow, I like it. You didn't even have to have the time to think. So
And when it comes to drinking, I'm well versed.
awesome. Okay, Will, how about you?
So yeah, I would definitely say a good craft beer and a bottle
Mhm.
of water gets it done. Stay hydrated and stay fun, I'd say.
Awesome. Anvo, how about you?
I think either lemonade or orange juice. I kind of judge how much I like a film based on how much liquid I'm drinking. If that makes sense.
That's really funny. That's a really fun answer actually. I like that. Colton, how about you?
Well, I tend to be on a growing film mead kick here lately. Valkyrie's Choice. Yeah, mead or water. Whatever's there.
Nice, very nice. I like it. Ronnie, how about you, my friend?
It would definitely be Diet Coke out of the fountain, not bottled.
Out of the pump. Nice.
Out of the pump.
I like it. I like it. Specific. And Jan, finally. Oh, is it Jan? Yes.
Yes, Jan, yeah. Well, when I am at cinema, I don't drink and I don't eat because I like to focus on film.
Film.
And when I'm at home, I drink water.
Perfect. And lastly, sorry, Attila, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of similar. If I watch a film, it's an important movie, I would not drink any alcohol. It's kind of like, reminds me of Woody Allen, who said, like, I don't want to have my audience, be high because, they just laugh anyway. And I just don't want to, I don't want to, have any influence. I want to be like clear, sharp, So otherwise, if I go to movie theaters, yeah, I don't know. I think I try to drink Coke and my wife doesn't let me. So she makes me drink root beer. So so that's the compromise. But yeah, water, it's a good deal.
Okay, so this is some serious film watchers. Yeah, okay. And Etienne.
I would always have a glass of red wine.
Awesome.
Pretty standard.
Awesome. Okay, no, I like it. All right, guys. So now let's move into the films, starting with Almost Midnight, Jan. I have to say, I think the way you deal with a very difficult situation, that's very subtle on the face of it, starts off with this very romantic tone, and then the one line from the guy sort of shatters that, and it helps the audience to just suddenly realize the struggles that he faces. I guess my first question has to be, why did you want to make a film about this?
Sorry, what was the question? Why?
Why did you want to make a film about that?
Well, as a matter of fact, it was from personal experience and experiences from my fellows, and I was very inspired by this this kind of twist that could happen, and in reality it didn't. But I wanted to put it in the film, so the inspiration was actually the real life events, and when I was attending some screenwriting course, and there we needed to write down one thing that first came to our mind, and it was exactly this situation. And I thought it would be in the short enough time that I could develop this kind of script with this little twist in the end. So this is why I did that.
Okay, interesting. Did you always know that it was going to be a single take? Did you write it with the intention of it being a
Yes.
single? You did.
Yes, because when I started to realize how to minimize the budget, because we are independent filmmakers, and I thought about, oh, let's try to make it with 2 actors in one room. Then when I have seen how this story develops, and it is not quite a long time lapse, I thought, wow, let's try to make it single take and try to see if this works like better than if I would film it in several takes. So it was a single take intention in the first place from the beginning.
Okay, so it was more to do with logistics as opposed to the style, I guess. Is that sort of what you're saying?
No, I mean that was just the first idea, and then we realized, oh yes, we need a single take. So we were never really thought about making it a normally edited film at all. So
For
it
sure.
was a single take intention.
And what was the hardest part, do you think, about obviously the single take, but what was the most...
In this case, the hardest part was the cinematography. Because I wanted it to be handheld without any grips, without easy rigs, steadicams, or whatever. I wanted to be handheld camera, and camera is quite heavy, and we got a female cinematographer, and she was quite tired because it was a 20-minute take, and we repeated it quite a lot of times. So that was the main challenge, how to sustain this. I mean,
yeah, it's interesting. I think we'll come back to it, but I do eventually want to sort of ask everyone how many times they shot it, but we'll come back to
okay. 12.
We'll come back to that. Okay, cool. Tim, moving on to The Americans now, which I think I would probably say is the most shocking film in the block. That's to me is a good thing.
I'm glad I did that.
I think that you really do sort of grab the audience and chuck them into this very awful scenario very quickly. So I guess my question to you would be, how difficult was it to create such a short film? I think it's under 4 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's like right at 4 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. And you make it feel as though it's already had its beginning and it's going to have its end. How difficult was that?
I'm not quite sure. I don't know how to answer that question. I can answer the drinking question. But with that, I think it was something that I knew I wanted to start it with, like the media and res, you just like throw you into that thing, try to have a real provocative opening image and just say, you're in this space now. So from there, it was just after that, it was just escalating, well, in this case, the violence and continuing it forward. But I want to say that it was hard, but for this particular thing, it was sort of just almost came naturally in this particular instance. I can't say that always occurs for me, but in this instance, it was just, this is what we were going to do. And I don't think we thought about that too much.
No, yeah, fair enough. I just think it does feel like a slice of a bigger film. So
sure. And I think there was a little bit of an intention there, just kind of knowing ahead of time that this wasn't going to be a full story. It was just going to be an aspect of a story. And I wanted to sort of just attack one specific idea. And at the time when I wrote it like 2 years ago, there were people talking about, in the United States at least, about how we needed another civil war. And I was like, I don't think you know what that looks like. So let me pretend to show you. And then it ended up being really prescient. And I got really depressed about that and didn't show it to anybody for months because I was like, oh, this is not what I meant. Yeah.
I think that it's strange, when you watch it now, especially with things that we're seeing going on, it's extremely relevant and equally even more terrifying. So again, I guess just the standard question is, did you always have the intention of making it single take when you was writing it, or did that come afterwards?
Yeah, so this one actually was written specifically for a single take. In Jacksonville, where I live, our film community, we do these quarterly film challenges, and each time we do a challenge, the challenge is specific to a craft aspect. So this particular challenge was technically supposed to be zero dialogue, and I kind of fudged that a little bit. But the challenge was going to be, like I think we had 5 minutes single take, telling a story you want. And so I had written the idea maybe a couple years ago, and then rewrote it specifically to do in one shot. So yes, it was designed specifically for a single take.
Cool. Okay. And again, similarly to what I asked Jan, obviously the cinematography, but other than that, or within the cinematography, what was the most difficult part? Is there a particular
Sure. Yeah, I think it was the blocking, just so that because I knew the camera was going to move and I wanted the camera to move, just having that be motivated. So having people move through the frame appropriately, so that there was a reason for the camera to go left, right, to move deeper in the frame, to pull back. I think that was just the most. I think we spent like 6 hours making that film. Like I said, it's only 4 minutes long. But we probably did 18 rehearsals before we started taking. And a lot of that was just stop and go stuff. Like, okay, no, what, this part works, but we need these people to come this way, so we have a reason to come over here because we know we want to land here. So it was almost like writing in writing live. Like we knew we had a plot, but really writing out the blocking happened like in the moment. Like, oh, we got to rewrite this because that's not working the way we want to.
Yeah.
But we know how we want to end. So how do we get to that?
Wow. So you really challenge yourself there.
Yes, I think so.
Have you watched the film with an audience or many audiences, or have you not been?
Yeah, so we screened it once, part of our challenge thing at the end of the little challenge time frame. We do a screening, and we did screen it with an audience, and it had a mixed review. The person behind me didn't know I had made that film, but the person behind me said, "Why did I have to watch that?" And I was like, "You're welcome." I've heard some great things from audiences throughout the years with films, but that was one of my favorites.
That's amazing, because I have to say, one of the icebreaker questions that I've done in previous Q&As is, how would you like the audience to feel after watching your film? And we haven't had anybody say.
Yeah, no, I can't say I want them to say, why did I have to watch that? But that was one of my favorite comments. Some other people had told me some other things about how people felt that they liked it until they saw the title of the film. And I was like, well, that's kind of the point. Yeah. Is I wanted to be provocative, and I did want it be an indictment on Americans' love of violence and weapons in particular, and how we don't treat every human being here equally. So I was okay with people being upset. Didn't necessarily want them to be like, why did I have to watch that? And I was like, well, because maybe you're racist.
Well, okay. Will, moving on to ERAM now, which is obviously the following film in the block, which again, it slows down a little bit. I do really like this film as well. I love the idea of taking sort of very familiar scenarios and locations, and you just have a story contained in itself. It's almost like you get to be the fly on the wall, as it were. It's sort of that morbid curiosity, I guess, of, wow, this woman is seriously annoying, and you get to just see it unfold, and you're glad that you're not one of them. So I guess my first question here has to be, where does this idea come to you from? You haven't been in any ER rooms recently. You haven't broken anything.
Well, thank you for the kind words. What it really comes from is, like, luckily not recently, but like 5 years ago-ish now, I was in the emergency room, literally just waiting in the waiting room for like 8-9 hours, something like that.
Wow.
And it was the same reason as my protagonist. Like, I had cut my hand.
Okay.
And it was crazy to me just how long I had to wait there, So I always thought that would be an interesting movie idea. Here we are. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's some real life stuff there.
No, definitely. I think it is interesting. It's a location in itself that's fascinating. The fact that it's never, it's 24 hours, and the characters and the pain and everything that goes with it. Again, similarly to the questions before, did you always want it to be a single take when you had the idea of the film?
Yeah, I did. I always thought one-shot films are super cool. Obviously, everyone else here does. Respect all around. But normally I love the cool tracking shots, a lot like Americans and stuff, and what a lot of you guys did. I think that stuff's awesome. But to me, it just made sense to stay static on this one. Like, more than anything, I wanted the audience to feel like they're in the waiting room too. And to me, that means just a static shot, watching the characters kind of waiting for the camera to move for a cut, and it's not going to happen. So to answer your question, yes.
Cool. Brilliant. Well, you sort of answered my next question as well, because I was going to ask, I think this is the first film that's in the block that's just static like that. And Vo, I guess it makes sense to ask you, how did you find this? Did you at all suggest to Will that maybe you could have some movements, or?
Yeah, I mean, this was like a very interesting challenge to work with Will, because this is our first project. We work together. So when he approached me with this idea, I still remember that night in, like, 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, and he came to my apartment and pitched the idea. And as a camera person, of course I like really cool camera movement. And then I was a little bit like, oh wow, you just stay there. Like, do you want to move in, dolly in? Like, I can do this. You want anamorphic, anything to make it exciting. But then the more that he explained the message, I guess, and his vision, I like, okay, I see what you're saying. And then, like, I have to put my urge to get just a pretty image versus like the need of telling a story. So yeah, I mean, and I think it's I guess it's a good start of a collaboration, I guess, right, Will? So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I have to say, I actually really like the fact that it was in front of a window as well, so you still do get the movement of the cars, as opposed to just like a blank wall. That was really nice. And I would also say there's always next time. So let's hope we can see what Anvo can do in the future.
Oh yeah,
Nikki, moving on to Leaf, which I'm sorry I didn't realise Etienne had to leave so quickly. I could have probably put you at the front, but I've got my notes here, and that's just the order that I did it. So I do apologise.
No worries.
Again with Leaf, I think you start in again talking about sort of familiar settings. She's just waiting for a bus. But obviously, it starts to get a little bit more surreal as the film goes on with what sort of plays out. And I really enjoy the sort of quote that you used to wrap that up. And it really did have me thinking, what do you believe? Why do you believe things? Can you sort of force yourself to different truths and stuff like that? I guess the question that I have here is, what were you trying to get the audience to feel after watching your film? And especially with the Alan Watts quote there at the end.
Yeah, I just think that we create what we think. Our thoughts create the reality that's in front of us. So if you've had like a shitty childhood, which many of us have, and you just cling on to that, you're going to continue to have a shitty life. So either you decide to change that, or you just continue just to live in that story. So it's just about like changing your story. And I also just wanted to maybe show, like, maybe it was real. Like, maybe that was her story. So it's kind of left to the audience to decide whether that was the case or not.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think at first you sort of think, oh, it's sort of a comedy. It's going to be this awkward encounter of this sort of slightly crazy lady. But actually, I do like how you sort of twist it on its head, and you do have the audience thinking, oh, actually, hang on, has she got a point there? Have audience responded similarly to this, or?
We actually haven't shown it to me.
Oh, really? Okay, no, that's fine. I had another question.
Yeah, we did it years ago, honestly, and I didn't even know John had submitted to places. So
really?
It was really exciting to be like, oh, I'm at a festival. That's exciting. We were all in a theater company together, which is sort of why I think it has like a bit of a theater vibe to it. But I had written it probably for the stage, and then I had an ex-boyfriend who loved doing one takes, and
okay, nice.
And I really loved like the 50 millimeter, like just like foreign kind of style. So we just were like, let's just shoot this. And we did it like in an hour. And it was like, that was like our second take, because we were trying to time it with the bus. And so once the bus came, we were like, all right, well, that's it. So we didn't really get to time out like the sound is a little, you know, is a little off. And that was kind of the one thing I was like, ugh, we can't really, I don't know if we can use this, but it was really all about the bus kind of arriving at the bus stop.
Wow, that's cool. So it's sort of had its own natural end, I guess, your own natural timer of when to conclude it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. I think that also there are parts of the dialogue where, like, you talk about the sound, but also it does feel very natural at the same time, because I guess they both realize it's only the second take or whatever. And I think sometimes the way they're interacting does feel very natural. So I think it sort of helped in that sense as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was important to me. Is I wrote it, but there was parts of it where I was like, well, this is bad writing. So let's just try to make it as let's improv a little and make it as natural as possible. And Etienne and I have worked a lot together, you know, and we're friends. So I think it helps to have that natural kind of personal relationship.
Awesome. No, that's great to hear. Okay, Carlton. So moving on to, I guess, what I would call slightly unfamiliar situations, I guess. You do a great job in sifting answers, in getting the audience to sense that struggle in a very subtle way. You know, very still, very calm, but you still feel that inner sort of despair almost. And I genuinely felt very grateful after watching the film that I was, you know, I'm able to choose my dinner 7 days a week. So I guess the only question I have to ask is, what was the inspiration for this film?
Well, the original inspiration was the Dust Bowl. However, you know, once I started doing a little bit of research, and this is a story that is larger than this short, obviously, and so there's a whole different ball of wax here. But back to the question, it's actually about the dust storms of 1948.
Wow.
Which happened after the Dust Bowl. You know, this was kind of a holdout from the Dust Bowl, a farm, you know, where people were, you know, fleeing from their farms. And this particular incident was an incident where, you know, a husband and wife tried to make it work, tried to keep their land and farm together. And it just, you know, it didn't work for them. And yeah, so that's kind of where we were with that.
I really love that. I think that you definitely do a great job of transporting the audience, not only to what the characters are feeling, but actually that time and place. And also, I have to say, the sound in your film is especially good. I think that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It wouldn't be fair for me not to mention that. I guess similar to ERAM as well, you don't have any movement in it's just the static shot, but I think you do lock off to your character. Is that right?
Yes. It is a 2-camera scene. It was, we built a set inside of a studio that I have out here in Gig Harbor. And that was probably the most difficult part. We're all actors. The camera, everything was done by actors. We have a group here of actors that we work with. So we all come from different acting backgrounds, whether that be theater or film, but we all work to make it happen. So we all know a lot of different aspects of filmmaking. We all have our strong points and our weaknesses, but yeah, it's still camera. We tried to take a page from Rowan Atkinson, and that was the initial direction. Is we want to portray emotion and to let that kind of tell the story of what was going on, and we hope that worked.
I definitely say I think it did. I think you did a brilliant job, and the fact that you're in it as well, it's quite cool to be able to speak to the director and actor. Awesome, Ronnie. Moving on to 6 Minutes. Again, another film I loved. I loved The Block, to be honest. I think I was never bored at all. It definitely played into sort of talking about morbid curiosity again, of thinking, what would that actually look like? You know, if the apocalypse were to happen, whether it's nuclear bomb or whatever it may be, there's ambiguity for that. And I really enjoyed the way that you represented it, because we all might think it's a little bit different. So I guess my question for you has to be, 6 Minutes, did that come before or after? The title, did it become before or after you wrote the film?
It was always called 6 Minutes. The idea came from listening to a podcast on the way from LA to San Francisco, when you have a lot of time to listen. It was a podcast about nukes, and during the Russian missile crisis, they said the time it takes for the president to react to a missile being launched is 6 minutes. And I was like, wow, that's not a lot of time. Cool. What would happen in those 6 minutes? And then that's basically what you see. So just let my imagination not run too wild, but see what happened, what I could do in that short 6 minutes.
Awesome. I love that. I was sure you was going to say that you thought we'd try and keep it between sort of 5 and 10 and then whatever it is. But I love the fact that you've given yourself that extra challenge of working to the 6 minutes, being it's a single take as well. So I guess that answers my next question. Did you always know, when you was listening, did you always know that after you was going to make the film, it was going to be a single take, or did it just sort of work out?
I mean, from the first idea, from the first line that I wrote, I mean, I was in the car and someone was actually writing it down for me as I was like, okay, right. And then they're going to go through the door, and then they're going to go out and see it, they're going to turn around, and then by the end of it, I was like, okay, this is a one take, it has to be. I don't know how I would cut this up any other way.
For sure. And what would you say was the hardest part to make 6 minutes?
Not having a permit and shooting in Lower Haight in San Francisco on a very popular street with homeless people and drunk people. That was the funnest and the hardest part of the entire journey.
Okay, so you really did set yourself a challenge there, did you?
Yeah. The bartender outside, we told her we were filming, but she thought we were lying about what we were shooting. I don't know. She thought we were shooting an Uber commercial or something. So she started blaring the music, and she came outside and started doing sidewalk chalk art in the middle of our shoot, and we had to buy her off, and it was really? It was a lot of fun. Okay. It was fun.
So that must have messed up a few times. So you obviously have your own hiccups, but then you had some exterior problems to deal with as well.
Yeah, we shot it about 7 times, and then we started getting a crowd of people around the 6th time, and we actually got it on the 3rd try. What's in the movie is the 3rd try. So
cool. Okay, that's interesting. So I will ask everyone else as well that same thing, because it's always interesting to see if it was shot again, but a different take was used. Awesome. Okay, Attila, moving on to The Shepherds of Cat Island, which again, I have to say, I'm a sucker for films that contain sort of a little nugget of information, or a slice of history or knowledge that I didn't know about. And often the stranger, the better. So I thought that was really, really fun. I think the way that you executed the story as well was brilliant. It felt very like it was from that time. The production design was excellent. So of course I have to ask, where did you first hear about the War Dogs and the experiment, or did you already know about it? Or
no, it's a total accident, and that's the best or most interesting part of this story, that anybody I approached with this story within the Japanese American community, the Japanese American Historical Society, nobody really was aware of this story. So it felt like a story that was kind of purposefully buried for some reason, because it's super despicable, and it resonates so much for the modern time and current turmoils of the country. And I did feel like that maybe like certain forces, the government, like put some effort into it to not to unveil it. So accidentally, yeah, I was writing a feature script about that had this idea to make a film about the Japanese American internment around the 40s, and then I bumped into this story, and I just couldn't believe it. That it's a true story, and it's like, wow, and no films about it, no. And there was there's a book about it. I contacted the writer, I talked to him, and obviously I interviewed a bunch of these soldiers, grandkids since, but nobody's alive, from that team. And then so yeah, total accident, and it's shocking that it exists. Yeah. I don't know if people know. Yeah, the story. It's just story is simple. Like the American government, like recruits 26 American soldiers, Japanese American soldiers from the U.S. Army, while the internment is going in the country, right? So they put them into this project because one of this European guy convinced the government, FDR personally, that the Japanese Americans they smell different from white Caucasians. So let's put them into an island close to Mississippi, a small island called Cat Island, and then train dogs. And then they wanted to train about 30,000 dogs for the country, for the United States Army, and change the war in the Pacific. That was the whole point. And then they obviously failed because it was like a despicable bullshit. And it's like the project was horrible. I mean, like the whole idea is. But then they didn't want to really admit, so they started to brutalize the dogs, and they went through more and more stories, so more heavier and heavier challenges. So yeah, then they called off in 3 months because it was unattainable.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some terrible stories that went on with America and warfare and the money that they spent on certain things. I have to say, I love dogs, so you almost took the title off of Tim for most shocking film, but obviously didn't say that. Cool. So so obviously the idea come to you. Did you then just make the decision for it to be a single take purely because of your own tastes, or did you think it would benefit the story?
Both. I mean, this was not the first one take production. I did a thesis film on a first take production, and I'm from Hungary originally. Like we have a long history in single takes. Like from the 50s. Now we have one of my favorite directors. They all made a bunch of feature films, not like one take feature films, because I don't think like it's the technicality I'm drawn to, but more like the atmosphere and then the aesthetics, like it gives you. Actually, this type of filmmaking, I don't know how people choose it. I always felt like gives you so much room to plug everybody in, all elements, all actors, all characters for a longer time, and everybody's super focused instead of, so you're not going to see anybody on the phone, and you're not going to see anybody like, if you work on film set, like short sets and like 80% of the cast and crew like really not really into what's happening. Well, you can't do this in a long take like this, especially when everybody's involved in that long take. Everybody needs to be focused and watch where the camera is, especially when you cover such a huge terrain like we did, like I don't know, like 300 yards or something, 400 yards. I'm not. So again, when you do that, I just enjoy that whole moment. I think when it comes to directing, like you at the top of that moment, because it really has to be super sharp. And I think I just love the concentration of it. But when it comes to the theme and the story, it does help when you choose, let's say, dramatic content that goes for tension. And then this is a very high tension film, of course, and my previous film was too. And then the long take somehow just doesn't let the audience look away. It keeps you wonder of what's next, what's happening, especially if you craft the screenplay in a way, that so you start with something weird and then you just slowly, surely, but unveil this whole world and story, but and you still keep something to the end, because that's I think that's it helps. It works aesthetically, but it works for the content and works for the director. So yeah, it was never a question.
Wow. Okay. I think that was a brilliant answer, by the way. It was really great just to hear you talk about your passion for it and your reasoning. Okay. So again, just a quick question. Again, I'll start with you, Attila, and I'll work back. Do you think you could have made the film? This is probably quite an easy question, yes or no. Do you think the film could have been made without using single take?
I believe so, yeah. So again, in the same time, let's not get, like I love single takes, and I'm gonna be probably like do my next in a similar way. But yes, and many times I'm sure many of us believes that I wish I cut in here and there, because in a
Sure.
single take, you at the end, like that's what you work with, and you pick one, and then you don't have a choice to manipulate the acting, or like like somehow like cut here and there, and that, yeah, exactly. Once you committed, you committed, and then, but it doesn't make sense many times for us, like in the editing room, like just cut in, because it just doesn't make any sense. Then the rest doesn't work. Then the rest aesthetically just like falls apart. So I would say like it's an amazing challenge. We all do it, and then, but in the same time, I'm sure everybody feels that I wish I had the room, and then also I'm not 100% at the end, like if this is the right technique or form for this story, what I did too, because obviously like who wouldn't want to like follow the soldiers running away from dogs and that, and then like put a close up on the face and then just like show the struggle, like like you do it all the time, and it works with the audience. So like when you commit yourself to the thing and you can't do things, of course it's frustrating. So I still say that's how it had to be, and that's what I enjoy. And then it's a very different pre-production, a very different production, a very different story at the end. So once you commit, like that's what you got, so I don't know if it ends.
Okay, Jan, with Almost Midnight, do you believe that the film could have been made without using a single take?
Yes, of course, it could have been made without a single take, but I think I agree with Attila. Attila, is it Attila?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with everything what he said actually, because the intention was to make it in a single take. I think the perception of time is different when you are watching the film in a single take.
Sure.
And if you got the story that can be shot in a single take, that doesn't have these time lapses and so on, so I think why not? I think it's worth trying it. And I would never, if we wouldn't succeed, I would never cut down like, okay, let's make it in 20 takes and it's going to be the same film. I would never do that.
For sure. Okay, Tim, with Americans, and I appreciate if your answer is just simply yes or no, because it could be. Do you think the film could have been made without using a single take?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And do you think that would have improved the film, how it turned out, or worsened it, or slightly?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I certainly like what we did with just the one take. I think that's how I was thinking about it. If you gave the screenplay to another director and said do something different, I think they could make a very interesting movie with that same plot and that same structure with edits in it. I know for me, I only want to edit if I'm going to introduce new information, and I feel like if you can craft the camera movement or your blocking in such a way that there's constant new information happening on frame, you don't really need to edit. So I certainly, what I was trying to do is trying to avoid the need to edit. I think everyone's films who I got to see did the same thing. Even particularly ERAM, I love that it was static. It's an extra challenge of making it static, and then the movement of the actors and their constant reveal of new information about themselves keeps you engaged, and the staticness is sort of not irrelevant, but you don't notice that it's static. I think that was great. Similar to the one, I don't think the director's here, but the exchange of the wife and or the girlfriend in the bag, like that was great. But it's constant new information. So yes, I think someone could do a really nice job and tell an excellent story. Cutting, using multiple angles and cutting differently on the Americans, and it'd be probably have a slightly different vibe, I would imagine. But I think, I don't know if it would be better or worse. I think it'd just be it'd be different.
Different, yeah. I think that's a fair answer. Nikki, how about you? Do you think that your film could have been made using more shots?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually had the establishing shot at the bus stop across the street, and then we took it out because we wanted it to just be one shot.
Perfect. Who is next? Will and Vo. Do you think that if you did choose to do it differently, it would have, of course, it would have made a different film, but do you think it would have improved what you was trying to get across, or maybe hindered it slightly?
Yes, so I think it like everyone else said, it definitely could have been made using cuts, but it just wouldn't be the same. Sure. At least with making you feel like you're actually waiting. I think that would be the biggest difference. And thank you for the shout out, Tim. But yeah, that's how I feel. Ein, I don't know if you want to say anything.
No, I think you cover everything. I think the big reason I was drawn to helping you making this vision come to life was the fact that the camera doesn't move and it's so odd, and it's like, who is this dude? So it's like, so it's I think it's meant to be. And I remember we discussed options to cut in, but then we both agree that it's not right. So
Fair enough. And I realise that everyone's answers are slightly similar, but I think because this is the one block that is really sort of it's set to its own rules and parameters, it makes sense for me to ask this question. So Carlton, do you think that Sifting Answers would have benefited from more takes or not?
Benefit, no. I think that although it's very difficult with the amount of takes that we did to get exactly what you want out of it, I think that if we had cut, I think that it would have taken away from
Sure.
the whole natural flow of what we were trying to accomplish.
Fair enough. And finally, Ronnie, what do you think? Do you think it would have taken away from the flow, if I can use Carlton's phrase there?
Yeah, I definitely would have taken away from the flow and building, because my film, it's all about building up the tension to what's actually going on. So I think we could have done it in cuts, but honestly, we didn't want to. We wanted to take on the challenge of trying to figure out how to do it. And I think from like the reason why we got everyone on board is just like a lot of our DP had done one takes before, so but everyone else was like, Jesus, I don't know where. It's all a dance, we were trying to figure out how to dance with each other, right? Sound guys were moving while the camera's coming in. We're ducking across things and handing off stuff to people like that. We just wanted it to be a one shot. And damn,
wow, that sounds awesome. When you put it like that, I like that. Yeah, like a dance,
it's a dance.
It's an extra art form.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And I think also what Jan mentions about how time is very different when you have a single take film. Obviously, your film being called 6 minutes, that all ties together nicely. Guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up there just because I think we've run slightly over, but that's absolutely fine. I do just want to say thank you so much for making these films. I thoroughly enjoyed them. They're all very different and unique and enjoyable in their own ways. So thanks for that. I want to thank the audience at home for watching. Do stick around to see what else the festival has to offer. But other than that, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. So thank you very much. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great films, everyone.
Yeah, congrats everybody. Well done.
Congrats
Well
everybody.
done.